a very merry is a weird word to use, but a very pleasant morning to you folks. And just like that, it's August. God knows where the time went. I've been absolutely pressed for time the last few weeks. Didn't really get out much in July, even some afternoon after work stuff I was planning to do. Kind of fell through just in lieu of being, freaking busy. In any case, we're out here again in a beautiful, unbroken state forest. Well, obviously broken because you're looking out over a power line, but generally, infrequently traveled. Got a nice power line cut right here that we're hanging out in. You can see down off into the distance there. Overall, a very pleasant place to be. I'll put this guy in focus right now, this nice Eupatorium. I'll talk about him in a second, but last time I was here, I was very frustrated. It was about 25 degrees, a very extremely pleasant morning right now. It's about 8:30, 8:45 in the morning, maybe about 65 degrees. It's August. It starts cooling off this time of year in New England, but it also, stays hot. If the air starts drying out, you get a nice dry stretch, a nice high pressure system come through. It can get pretty darn cold. I was grilling 2 nights ago at my house, and I was outside at night, could see my freaking breath, so we had a little bit of a cold front coming through. But rest assured, August, especially now at the beginning, is still very much summer in New England, but you start getting these nice, cool nights that we haven't gotten since early May, if that makes sense. In any case, got a number of target species we're going to be looking for in here. A lot of it's probably not going to be in bloom. A lot of ferns, but again, this is that place I went to. I made a comment about the geology. So where we are at is in the shadow of a volcanic ring dike, a very ideal specimen. Oh, I got a goldenrod beetle climbing on me. Check this guy out. Put the scientific name for this guy down below. Goldenrod beetle. They hang out on goldenrods, of which there are plenty around here. Go hang out on the goldenrod, buddy. I just kind of flipped them off me. I was gentle, it's okay. Anyway, volcanic ring dikes, for those of you who are unindoctrinated, New Hampshire has a long, somewhat misunderstood, somewhat misrepresented history of volcanism, specifically hotspot volcanism, the same type of volcanism that's powering Yellowstone National Park, the same type of volcanism that's driving the volcanoes of Hawaii. Basically a hot mantle plume. So as tectonic plates shift and move gradually over time, over said mantle plumes, those hot spots appear to travel, but in reality I believe that they stay put, and it's the tectonic plates moving over them that creates the illusion of movement. That aside, at some point around 150 million years ago, a mantle plume moved out from underneath, I want to say, the Canadian Shield, which is simply too thick for it to penetrate into Avalonia, Laurentia, whatever the hell we were calling, the eastern half of North America was referred to at the time, maybe Appalachia. Because again, to the west there was an inland sea. North America was split in two around this time. There was a massive sea covering most of the central, south central portion of the United States. But getting ahead of myself here. So at one point, from about 150 to about 130, 120, whatever cutoff you want to use, there was some pretty active volcanism in New Hampshire. The Ossipee mountain range is probably one of the best examples in the world of a volcanic ring dike. Is quite perfectly formed. Looks like a circle emerging from a flat plain around it in the Lakes region. Pawtuckaway State Park is a volcanic ring dike. The Belknaps have like a sill, and then they're dotting the White Mountains of New Hampshire. But obviously, the pre-existing Appalachian mountain ranges kind of obscure that for most of this. So we're right on the edge of the White Mountains here. So this one kind of stands out, even though some of it did get clipped off by glacial influence. So that is to say that there is a pretty abrupt, although not really that tall in the grand scheme of things. It only rises maybe 600, 700, 800 feet above the surrounding area, but that's still very prominent because it's relatively flat here. Chunk of volcanic rock. And what had happened was on one side of that ring dike, some sedimentation occurred. You get a very prime example. Oh, it's a beautiful hawk. That's what's been making that noise over there too. Beautiful, beautiful hawk flying around right now. I'm sure he's pissed off I'm here. You had some sedimentation occurring, creating a pristine example of a rich deciduous woodland. So though we are pretty far north and relatively high up, maybe 12, 1400 feet as I stand now, a lot of the forest makeup that we're about to go down into here is deciduous broadleaf trees. And what that's allowed for is a relatively open understory to get through. Like I said, I've been here before. There's coniferous sections of this forest. There's swamps that I'm hoping to go take a look at if we have time. And then there's also a whole upland and cliff fern community, which I talked nothing about last time. So there's a lot of variation in a relatively small, state forest area. I mean, I think it's like maybe geez, I don't even know, like 8 miles by like 5 miles. It's not huge. You could certainly explore most of it in a day. And I mean, we're already pretty far in being at this power line cut. But all that to say, relatively long intro. Tons of variation in habitat here over a relatively small area. Lots of rare plants for New Hampshire and for New England at large. And some really interesting ones. Probably going to see, hopefully, a couple orchids. If we can get down into the swamp, there's some nice plantain that should probably still be partially in bloom. Our first target is actually a plant that blooms in like May, so I'm just hoping to get some seed pods and see the base of leaves of that one. But we'll leave everything in the open. I don't want to promise anything then not deliver, because that was the whole reason why I got trapped in the matrix, so to speak, last time. So a little bit of context for you. Get nice Eupatorium, perfoliatum in front of us there. Tons of goldenrod starting to bloom. A lot of it is in bloom actually, and some euthamia as well. Some flat top golden aster, and origerons around here too. A nice who's who. It's aster season. This is the time of year the majority of asters kind of start going into bloom. They wait all year to do their thing. So I think we'll cut it off there. That's like an 8-minute intro, probably too long for this, and yeah, we'll go have at it. We'll see what we can find. Hopefully some interesting stuff. And if not, it's a beautiful day to be out, unlike last time I was here. Oh, okay, there you go. There's an orchid. I don't even remember seeing this guy on the checklist for this area. But this is Goodyera repens. Or not, sorry, not Goodyera repens. Goodyera tesselata. This is the checkered rattlesnake plantain. Goodyera pubescens, which is the downy rattlesnake plantain, one of the most common orchids in New England. And this guy, not that much more rare than him, just ever so slightly pickier in habitat. Definitely a resident of these, rich, deciduous woodlands. That's what he likes. That's what he's sticking with. And yeah, just one that's always good to see. A diminutive little thing. Goodyera, pretty diverse, pretty speciose genus. You get 4 species in New England. 2 are common to relatively common, this being one of the 2. And then Goodyera repens and Goodyera oblongifolia are rather rare. In the case of Goodyera repens, that is a rare plant overall, but the oblongifolia is merely a disjunct, and it's much more common out west. The large-leaved rattlesnake plantain or large rattlesnake plantain, whatever. So obviously, being an orchid, the flowers, yeah, they're pretty. Nothing really to write home about on a Goodyera, but the real show on any Goodyera is those beautiful evergreen leaves. Stay out all winter. This is a great one to hunt for in the winter. These you can see probably, I mean, you can find these year round. Early spring, when the snow melts, you'll see the leaves. In the winter, the little seed heads stick out. You can see this guy's already starting to go to seed. Those little seed heads are pretty persistent over the winter. Pretty fun to find these. Tesselata, I see Goodyera pubescens like every other time I come out. Tesselata is a little bit more rare of a find. So we'll leave this guy here for now. That's like one orchid down, one that I wasn't even necessarily expecting to see, but that's the beauty about botanizing, especially in fast areas that have interesting habitats, is even if you don't find what you're looking for, you'll always find something. And it certainly beats sitting on the fucking couch all day, you know what I'm saying? Okay, here we've got our first actual target species of the day. This weird looking doodad. This is a member of the family Apiaceae, okay? This is the carrot family. And just because I'm trying to interject more substantive information into my videos, part of the request, the lovely viewers. I mean that wholeheartedly. If you don't know, plants, all living things in fact, are separated into clades. This is taxonomy, okay? Really, with plants, once you learn, conifers, flowering plants, ferns, lycopods, and bryophytes, like learn the big 5 clusters of plants. There's more than that, but learn the big 5 clusters of plants, and then really all you need to know after that, okay, is within flowering plants, monocots and dicots, magnoliids if you really want to be ambitious, but orchids, lilies, agave, palm trees, those are your monocots, and everything else, unless it's like a magnolia, an acer, like a wild Canada ginger, which is Piperales. Those are magnoliids, basal angiosperms, not that many of them, especially not up here. A few, but not many. And then the rest of everything that's flowering is a dicot, okay? Refers to the number of cotyledons, which are the first little, quote, leaves, which aren't technically true leaves, that emerge out of a plant when it goes from seed, okay? So other than that, so know your 5-ish big groups from most basal, meaning from broke off the evolutionary chain longest ago. You ever hear the term living fossil? So going from living fossils to relatively recent innovations, you have your bryophytes, which are mosses and such. You have your lycophytes, which are club mosses, which are inappropriately named, quote-unquote resurrection ferns, which are also inappropriately named. What else am I thinking of here? Well, you get the idea. Ferns, which, I mean, I hope you know what a fern is. Say hi to Polystichum acrosticoides over there. I sure hope you know what a fern is. And then conifers, which are pine trees. And, if you're in New England, pine trees, firs, cedars, which aren't really cedars, but cuprosides, and yews, which is, whatever. And then flowering plants, which is what pretty much the majority of plants are, from grasses to roses to whatever. Those are flowering plants, okay? So this is a flowering plant, and now what I'm going to convey to you is you have things called order, family, genus, species. Every species is every living species is an extant lineage within a genus, which is a cluster of plants, most typically sharing very similar traits. So Canis lupus, the wolf, and Canis familiaris, the dog, are 2 species in the same genus. They're very similar morphologically, and they're very closely related evolutionarily. Up from there, you have a family. Generally speaking, still going to have shared traits, although it gets a bit more opaque at that point. And then an order, which are massive assemblages of plants, sometimes, close to, can be, 50,000 plus species of plants in an order. So, this is a plant in the genus Sanicula, in the family Apiaceae, which is the carrot family, in the genus of sanicles. This is Sanicula trifoliata. All right, this is the 3-leaf sanicle. I think they call it large fruited sanicle. This is a weird species. So this is one of those ones that's super widespread, seldom observed. And I mean, sanicles are fairly uncharismatic, but they are weird little dudes. I do like them. Sharing a similar, I'll zoom out for a second, they share a really similar form factor to a lot of cinquefoils. It's interesting, huh? With the 3 leaves, trifoliata. So that's actually not 3 leaves. What that is it's actually 1 compound leaf split into 3. So here's another term for you that you should know, synapomorphy. Those are the aforementioned shared traits I described. So a synapomorphy of the carrot family is typically compound leaves. If you've ever grown like parsley or carrots or seen Queen Anne's lace, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That fan, almost fern-like looking leaves. They're compound leaves. That's a common trait, as well as the clustered inflorescences. Although typically on Apiaceae, I'll put a picture of Queen Anne's lace. They look like that. These are much more condensed on here, and there are, if I can actually, I probably can, get in here just a bit more. You'll have to excuse me, I'm sniffly all of a sudden. Just a bit more. I'm going to have to hold the thing though. Yeah, those are the flowers there. Okay? So you see, look at these two dead center on the top. So you can tell the difference between this and the more common species, Sanicula canadense, because Sanicula canadense does not have these like little persistent peduncles that these flowers hang out on, and the fruits, the little bristles you see coming off, are substantially longer. I'll have to get a picture of like a Sanicula canadensis fruit to show. So these guys are just about done. What you can see there, those little green spikes that almost looks like a crown around that white part, those are the sepals. So the sepals hide the petals, which are the white things on the inside, when a flower is in bud. And the fact that those sepals are still poking out just beyond the flower, I'm 99% sure this is Sanicula trifoliata, one of our target species. So I'll put up the INAT map of this. So this thing has like a weird, just like absurdly, I think this, I want to back off, absurdly spotty distribution around the east. In New England, it's generally only seen in Vermont. Likes the, as I was mentioning before, likes these rich, you know, very fertile habitats, which you don't get often in New Hampshire because the soil here is generally very rocky, very acidic. All right, that's a whole other, you know, that plays host to a whole other cast of cool plants. I say this a lot: rocky, acidic, and nutrient poor doesn't mean that it's not an interesting habitat. In fact, that can make the habitat substantially more interesting. You go into the Midwest, where you still have habitat, which is actually not much of the Midwest. Their forests are a lot more calcareous. There is, meaning that there is a limestone-derived bedrock putting calcium into the soil, changes the chemistry, changes the plant community, yada, yada, yada. Elevation, hydrology, so the actual, not the precipitation, but the hydrology of an area. Like, is it inundated? Is it xeric? Like, is it drained fast? Is it a wetland? Yes, the climate, the precipitation, the average temperature, the topography, the shape of the land, you know what I mean? The physiography, if you will, soil chemistry, bedrock type, all of these affect habitat, okay? And that's, again, just to hammer home the idea of why this area is so interesting to me. You have a wide variety of different microhabitats occurring in a pretty compact little area. So this is, once again, Sanicula trifoliata. I would have put up the little INAT map. You can see it has a little blip in Vermont and a couple patches out in the Midwest, but it's not a frequently observed plant, at least not on iNaturalist. And in New England, it is considered rare in every state in which it occurs. I know it's S2 here in New Hampshire, S3 in Massachusetts, S3 in Vermont. A little bit less rare because, again, the soil type in Vermont and in Western Mass, once you get, you know, on the west side of the Connecticut River, you start getting some, mostly like phyllite, but you get some marble and some limestone in parts of, you know, extreme western, southwestern Vermont and Western Mass. You get some nice marble exposures. But anyway, Apiaceae, don't normally talk about this family much, but this is a cool one. So I figured I'd give him a little shout out, and we're going to continue on our merry way here. All right, things are getting interesting. This guy is not a particularly, you know, charismatic specimen at this point in his life cycle, but this is a really beautiful, as its common name implies, highly showy species of orchid when it is in bloom. And unfortunately for us, it blooms all the way back in May, but it's persistent and stays in fruit, so we can still observe it even post flowering. All right, this is Galearis spectabilis. They call this the showy orchis. It's again, you know, one that's inhabited of these rich forests, which, I mean, this is reminding me a bit of some of the areas you get into out in Vermont, just the co-occurring species, and I'll show you a couple of them, specifically that are fascinating. Yada yada yada. what was I saying? I lost my train of thought there for a second. Doesn't really, ooh, there's a Botrypus next to me too, a rattlesnake fern. Anyway, I'm getting way off topic here. We'll do a little zoom out, and I'll show you the co-occurring species in a second here, but you got a really nice species of orchid. Not very common in New Hampshire, much more common, but still not common in Vermont, okay? Galearis spectabilis inhabits these beautiful, rich, I guess like talus-laden forests, nice and rocky in here. Lots of duff, smells fantastic. The soil's really rich, probably a bit on the calcareous side, again, because there's some sedimentation that has occurred in the bedrock here. And really just a beautiful habitat to be in overall. You know, I'll zoom out for a second here. You know, you can really get an idea, like the forest here, you can walk around in this pretty much no problem. I was down kind of coming up a creek bed behind me. There was some stinging nettle in there, which is unpleasant, but by and large, relatively pleasant to be in. So again, this guy's not in flower, so we can't see the beautiful purple and white flowers that it would have, you know, have had a few months ago, but we can still appreciate the overall form factor here. Nice, broad, fleshy basal leaves, 2 of them. Really thick and leathery, actually, because it's a shade plant, so it has those big solar panels out there to collect as much sunlight as possible. These little withered things right here at the top, that would have been the flowers. I think I'm going to be making a video where I think I have a video out where this is in flower. I'll put the thumbnail there if I did. I'm pretty sure I did. I think it's a video where I also talk about Superpedium Arationum, which this would be an appropriate habitat for that plant, but I do not think it's in here. In any case, I digress. So these would have been the flowers here, and then behind each flower is an ovary. So an ovary is just the fancy anatomical name for fruit. You know, I mean, that's where the seeds are developing. That's how the thing reproduces. That's, you know, what you know, angiosperms, flowering plants do. So I'll give you a fancy little term here. Orchids, on orchids, the anther is what is referred to as being inferior, meaning that the ovary is behind the flower. Some plants, the ovary is you know, above the petals, they call it the perianth, is like the sum of those parts is above the perianth, and in some plants it's behind. When it's behind, it's called inferior. When it's in front, it's called superior. So like a pea is a perfect example of like a superior ovary. The point of attachment is above the perianth, so the pea fruit almost looks like it's coming out, you know, from inside the flower when it's maturing, versus on an orchid, the flower looks like it's emerging from the base of the fruit. That all translates. So Galearis spectabilis, I love the fleshy leaves. This guy's in pretty good shape, all things considering. It doesn't really look like it. I don't really know if it got pollinated. Those ovaries don't look that swollen, but again, this is not a common plant. And I believe that there's only maybe a handful of populations, even in this county in the state. So let me show you some of the co-occurring species that are going on around here. I'll have to edit this together, so it'll cut in a second, and you'll get the gist of what I'm talking about here. I'll just free handle the camera for a bit. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. I'll put the stabilizer on. It's okay. So down there, you get a nice species of a Streptopus. This is actually in the lily family, Araliaceae. Any fruits on this guy? No fruits on the Streptopus. And then that's the rattlesnake fern I was talking about. These are weird. These are in the family Ophioglossacea. Very, very ancient lineage of fern. These are not as similar as you would expect to these guys over here, the Polystichum ferns, Polystichum acrosticoides over there. They're very distantly related, okay? There's quite a bit, maybe like over 100,000 years of distance between, I'll double check that, between this guy's lineage and that guy's lineage over there. Had this gone to, we'll probably see him later on today where they have the strobili out, but when this guy puts his spores out, they come up basically from right here, and they just make a weird little structure there. So that's one you'll expect to see. Okay, I did do a little cut. There's another fern, not an Ophioglossacea, not an Ophioglossacea, and Pteridaceae in the lip fern family. This is Adiantum pedatum. This is the northern maidenhair fern, beautiful, iconic fern of this habitat, as well as, you know, Polystichum acrosticoides, although he's a little bit less picky. He just likes any run-of-the-mill sort of rich deciduous forest. You can see that guy in. Still love seeing him, but the Adiantum is a real, you know, that's a real showstopper. Got an endemic one in Vermont, or like an endemic subspecies. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they resolved that whole thing. Just giving you some, I'm just basically giving you the context, the lay of the land here. Okay, there you go. Took me a minute to find one with the berry on it, but there you go. That's a Cauliphyllum, either Cauliphyllum thalastroides or Cauliphyllum giganteum. It's a blue cohosh. They both look very, very similar, and functionally, past, you know, the emergence of their fruit and past the emergence of their flowers, I think they're morphologically more or less identical. But that's another absolute trademark plant of a rich forest understory. You can go see this guy on like Wachusett too. These are, just because I'm pointing them out, like they're indicators of special, they're, you know, whatever, they belong here, indicative of the habitat. Not all these are super rare plants. Some of them are just, you know, habitat specific. So I think we'll wrap this section up, and I think it's time for us to kind of shift gears. I'll probably end up cutting this into at least a couple different videos, because we're going to go to a completely different habitat. We're going to go look at the cliff community. So you're either going to get that cut into the next part of this video, or we'll see how I do it, but that's okay. I'll put the stabilizer on this. I know people hate it when I pick the camera up and, you know, carry it around and do things that way, but sometimes it just makes more sense. You just get greater context for the habitat around them. Oh, I never even said the scientific name of the rattlesnake fern. That's Botrypus virginianus, and indeed, yeah, those are everywhere in here. I saw plenty of those last time I was in here. Yeah, this is going to be better captured on the phone, unfortunately, but we got another orchid, Ptanthoracycodes. All right, this is the lesser purple fringed orchid. Unfortunately, this guy got like nipped off by something, but he's just hanging on enough so we can get him on video. Again, you'll note inferior ovary. Oh, there's a nice nectar spur there. So if you're a little bird coming through to get your proboscis, see that right there? It's the nectar spur. That's actually how you tell this apart from Ptanthoracycodes grandiflora. All right, grandiflora has a round opening. Cycodes, in addition to having a pretty different phenology, grandiflora flowers in like late May, early June. This one's flowering now in August. Yeah, see, this is what I mean. He got knocked over by something. God, this is a small one too. Usually they're bigger than this. Whatever. These are supposed to be growing down in the swamp too. You get the idea. That nectar spur is open wide, okay? It's not thin and narrow. So the pollinator is going to stick its proboscis in there. That tube is where the nectar is, and that's basically the incentive to pollinate the thing, all right? Pretty leafy and pretty tall. I mean, this is a small one. I've seen them growing bigger than this. I wish I could get the guy to sit up straight, but I think that that's just going to have to be. When I found it, it was slumped over like that the other way. Yeah, that's not helping. That's unfortunate. It's okay. He already got some fruits going there. So, but Ptanthoracycodes, unfortunately, in not that great of a condition. But yet another cool native species of orchid growing just in the woods here. Wouldn't expect to see it, but I guess it is a rich creek bed here. It's dry though. So we'll leave this poor bastard alone. These are not that rare on the grand scheme of things, fortunately. But that is a shame that it's in that state. We'll probably see more of them. But yeah, just this whole area is like a dry creek bed not running. And then I want to go check out this clearing over here, and then we'll head down, or over, I think it's the correct term. We'll see if we can go see some ferns. Okay, so this is yet another orchid, but I've been seeing this guy everywhere, and don't get too excited. This is a non-native orchid. But just to give you an idea of how prominent, God, somebody told me, they're like, oh, I didn't even know we had orchids in New England. We have a fuck ton of orchids in New England. I'll put up Bonap's orchid diversity map. New England is up there. Florida, obviously we're not touching Florida. I think Louisiana might have some pretty good diversity too, but New England is up there in terms of orchid diversity. You get the tail end of the, basically the confluence of all the northern trending species and all the southern trending species. You get these cool boreal orchids like the tway blades and like a Amarorchis, those. Of course, you get lady slippers. I'm doing gotta get on that and do a whole thing about those. And then you also get some plants that are a little bit more common down south. Like Galearis fits that bill. But by and large, orchids, though thought of as being tropical, occur in pretty much every single habitat type except for ice caps and deserts. But yeah, we have like 60 some odd species of orchid in New England, probably upwards of 55 in New Hampshire. I just love them. They're hyper diverse. They're fascinating. This is not a native one. This comes from Europe. This is Epipactis helberine. Although there are species of Epipactis native to the United States, none of them occur in New England. So just wanted to, I never shut up about them because they're highly diverse. They're fascinating. They get people excited for plants. And I pull over just to show you. So what do we see? We saw Goodyera. We got the Galearis. We got Botanthurus psychotes, and we've got this Epipactis. So it's 4 species, and I'm still expecting to come across potentially 2 others. We'll keep our fingers crossed because those 2 would be completely new to me species. Everything else I've seen before, not that it's not exciting to see it again. So I just love them. I love the ferns too. You get into this, you'll feel out your niche. You know what I mean? You'll find what you're interested in. You don't have to be into the same shit everybody else is. God, you don't have to be into the same shit everybody else is in. Orchids are what got me into it. Everybody loves orchids. Now I'm into the ferns. I'm into asters too, you know what I mean? Love the bog plants, love the carnivorous plants, but you get the idea. You get what I'm talking. You'll find your thing. You'll find your thing. And you feel like dragging the camera all the way back out, but since we're transitioning to the fern talk anyway, we get a nice, I thought this was Spectabilis dissectum, but I don't think it is actually. This is some other type of Botrypus, not the same as the rattlesnake fern. You can tell that just by looking at how the leaves are, but also by the fact that on Botrypus or Botrypus virginianus, I should say, this Ericaceae here, the actual fertile frond where the spores are born, this guy right here, with zoom, there you go. See kind of why they call them grape ferns. That's another common name for them, rattlesnake ferns, grape ferns. Just a general overall form factor. So I'll have to get back to maybe Matriacum. I'm going to have a whole video of a whole bunch of these growing really dwarfed in one of my acquaintance of mine's yard. He's got a whole bunch of these on his property. So I've probably seen this species before, but they can be quite plastic. Anyway, what I was saying is this comes out of the ground born separately than Botrypus virginianus. So same family, formerly the same genus. They split this whole genus up. Botrypus is its own thing now. So this is either a Botrychium or a Spectabilis. All right, they split the genus up into quite a few species. You also have actual Ophioglossum. Ophioglossum pusillum is our native Ophioglossum fern. These things are wild looking if you actually get into ferns and you kind of start poking around, paying attention. These things are kind of wild. Anyway, worth showing. Definitely worth showing. A fascinating ancient lineage of ferns. Definitely worth showing. So this is the dike right here. God damn. Gotta do it on my phone because my actual camera doesn't have a wide enough angle of a lens. That's probably, I mean, it's not that high, but it's a really beautiful rock face. So we're gonna go poke around down at the base of it. That's where our next target species is supposed to be. And I'm sure there's some other fascinating things hanging out up here. We'll be spending the next chunk of the day up in this area. We're gonna have to find a way to get up on top of that. There are ways. Again, this isn't like a exceptionally well-traveled area, but I was able to find, some notes on people who have bushwhacked through here. There's like road grade everywhere through here. It's just clearly logged at some point. There's a lot of road grade, which has been nice because the other side I came in from did not have that. And I mean, even coming up this steep ass slope, probably just came up like 300 or 400 feet. Even scrambling up that was a walk in the park compared to what I was dealing with. Not necessarily on the other side of this, down at the south end of this. So let's go see what's going on over here. This is nice. This is really nice. I like this. This is like this is what? How many times have I said it this year? This is the shit they want to take away from you. They want to take this specifically away from you. Although this is all state land, so fucking the federal government can go get fucked, you know? All right, let's go take a look. Enough fucking politics, more important things to look at here. Okay, so we're still looking for cryptogramma. I haven't actually made it that far. I just wanted to highlight this rock type right here. See, you look at this. This is obviously, I have the actual rock type. I can put it down there, but it's very clearly volcanically derived. It came right off this chunk right here. So this is all, you know, basically what would have been like the inside of a caldera. I'll have to relook at my terminology, but what's happening here is creating what's referred to as a circumneutral cliff seep community. It's very dry right now, so there's not much water running, but had we be getting rain, it'd be considerably more damp here. And what's happened is all of this talus has weathered out and has over, you know, hundreds of millions of years built up a slope here. Strip this away, God only knows how far down this goes, but the thing is overhanging. So, I mean, do with that information what you will, but that's the actual rock type. And on the other side, it's a different rock type. So this is volcanic in origin. It's going to typically, keyword typically, create a more rich and circumneutral to almost high pH community. So this talus slope, had this be limestone like you get out in Western Mass, you'd have a very fascinating community of plants here. And you still get some of them, but they're not nearly as abundant as they could be like out in Western Mass or Vermont. All right, we're gonna keep looking for our target fern here. Okay, we have officially stepped into the fern dungeon here, okay? So what you're looking at there, should be in focus right now, yeah, in focus, is a rather interesting fern that goes by the name of Cryptogramma stellari. Now, if you watch any of the fern content on the channel, you know I've talked a lot about a specific subfamily called the Chilanthoideae subfamily. All right. Now the chilanthoid ferns, that is a subfamily. So remember earlier we talked about order, family, genus, species. Yeah, subfamilies to it. It breaks up the big families, and you know what I mean. Makes it a little bit easier to digest. So this is in the family Pteridaceae with the P, Pteridaceae, which goes by, you know, the lip fern. God, what am I trying to say here? The lip fern family. So that maidenhair fern we saw down there earlier is also in that family. And basically, what this fern's whole trademark thing is, we'll just get this part out of the way. Let me finish my thought about Chilanthoideae. This is so Chilanthoideae. That whole subfamily is a lot of xeric desert-adapted ferns, and in the East Coast, it translates to a few species of cliff-dwelling xeric ferns. They can tolerate very dry, very exposed conditions, unlike a lot of ferns, which prefer it like damp and moist, just because they are adapted to that type of habitat. They're very fascinating. What am I trying to say here? Fuck, why can't I remember the name of it now? The purple stem cliff break, Pelea atropipuria, is one of those. So this is a different cliff fern. This is the slender cliff fern, or slender cliff break, Cryptogramma stellari. Not sure if I actually said the name. And though it is in the same family as the chilanthoid ferns, it is not in that exact same subfamily. It's in a different subfamily. So this guy, generally speaking, other than a few very, very isolated occurrences such as this, is restricted to the Connecticut River Valley in New England. I didn't bother to look before how wide its distribution is globally, so I'll probably put that up right around here. You can see what the distribution of it looks like, but it is restricted to these sort of subalpine circumneutral cliffs. That's what this community is called, subalpine circumneutral cliff seeps. Okay, so it's going to grow here, and it's going to grow on the cliffs along the Connecticut River. It likes it cool, it likes it damp, it likes it shaded, it likes to have its feet wet, and he's just chilling. There's a whole bunch of them all along the edge of this cliff face here. You know, quite beautiful. So a little bit of anatomy on these things. So lip fern subfamily, what the hell does that mean? So two things here. You see these leaves off to the side right here? And you see these leaves down at the base of this thing? So this is another dimorphic fern like that Botrypus we saw earlier, okay? It's dimorphic fern, meaning it produces two different types of leaves, okay? Cryptogamma, by the way, they call these parsley ferns because I guess they do kind of look like, parsley. So from this point forward, this is the fertile frond. We flip this guy over. Maybe it'll help if I move the camera a little closer. Sun's kind of doing a weird thing there. Give me 1 second. I can cut this out. Yeah, okay, there we go. That's going to be real nice. So we flip this guy over. And what we see there is something called a false indusium. So the sori, the spores, how ferns reproduce, are all rolled up in the margins of the sporophyte. That's a fancy word for the fertile frond on a fern, the sporophyte, okay? So we've got that protecting the spores, keeping them rolled in from drying out until they're ready to be dispersed. So again, two types of leaves, a fertile frond, and then actually there's a whole bunch of them right here. The vegetative frond, whose predominant job it is to photosynthesize. Wonderful, wonderful communities can be found in New England under these cliffs, whether it's Western Mass, whether it's Smuggler's Notch, whether it's here in New Hampshire. Every region of the world, no matter how unremarkable it may seem at first, I mean, maybe barring the polar ice caps, which are basically deserted, somewhere, wherever you live in the world, let's say it like this, wherever you live in the world, there is probably some sort of microhabitat that has something incredibly fascinating to it. You might find not necessarily endemic plants growing there, but you can always find an endemic plant community. So none of these species exist in a vacuum. I've explained this numerous times, so I'll give you the abridged version. And a rare plant in isolation is not always that fascinating. That's why, like, gardens don't really, putting rare plants in gardens doesn't really excite me that much. Seeing them in a conservatory doesn't excite me that much unless they're actually, planting them in the context of the other plants they grow with. So you could have a cluster. Oh, geez, hummingbird just buzzed me. Yeah, we get hummingbirds up here. There's a ton of Rubus odoratus. They love that plant. I think that's what they're going after. That was terrifying. What was I saying? Oh, probably had columbines growing up here too earlier in the season. That probably brought them in. Anyway, I digress. A rare plant in a vacuum is not necessarily the most interesting thing. Blah, blah, blah. Plant communities themselves can be rare entities. That's the whole thing. That's why you have to preserve, habitat. You can't just take a plant out of the context of its, natural habitat, put it somewhere else and expect it to do fine. Likewise, a seemingly common plant growing in an unusual community with plants it does not usually grow with can also be very fascinating, even if they're all common species. So, Cryptogamma stellari, slender cliffbrake, rare in New Hampshire, I believe rare around New England. I'm not sure where else it gets around to. I imagine it probably, if this is the type of habitat it likes, it's probably growing somewhere on the Great Lakes. I'll just take a stab at that. If I'm right, I'll be proud of myself, and if I'm wrong, well, I never claimed to be the arbiter of infallible knowledge. So, yeah. If this is too long-winded, these are going to be long. My episode's been getting shorter. This is going to be too long-winded. Let me know. I can probably at the end of the day, I can probably break this up into 2 or 3 videos. If I find the last orchid, there's actually 2 orchid species I'm still looking for. If I can find those, we don't even need to go down to the swamp here. We can just book it out and head home. And I could probably squeeze in another video, because it's one I've been wanting to film right by my house. But that's all insider baseball. You don't need to worry about that right now. So, we'll leave this guy for now, and we get a few other ferns and a few other orchids to go look at, and we'll see what else there is to see. This is a fucking nice community. I love this shit. It's not really like anything else I've come across up in this region of New Hampshire. Western Mass, Western New England, certainly, but I love it. No asplenium so far. I'll have to sound the asplenium alarm if I end up running into some of those. But all right, that's enough on this guy. Cryptogamma stellari, beautiful fern, rare in New Hampshire, unusual to occur here, but where you would normally see it is Connecticut River Valley. All right, that's all I got. Yeah, so before the last video, or however I divide this up, I mentioned bryophytes. All right, these are bryophytes, mosses, and liverworts, okay? Two different families of critter here. Basically, they reproduce with spores, and they don't have like an internal vasculature, so you only see them growing in like super rich communities like this, coming up with Cryptogramma stellari and impatiens, interestingly enough. Some type of leaf miner there. Look at this guy going to town on the impatiens. See, there's a little guy in there. He's living inside the leaf. So something lays an egg, he gets in there, starts eating the leaf. You can see his trail gets wider as he gets fatter. And then eventually he metamorphoses and leaves there. Doesn't usually knock the plant back that much. There's a whole bunch of them in that one. Form a little cocoon in there. Huh? Pay attention to the living world, you chud. That's so much more fascinating than whatever the fuck's on Netflix right now. Maybe not. Maybe there's something good on Netflix, but that's surely more fascinating than 75% of what's on Netflix. So take that how you will. All right, so status update. Most of what I've been going over the last hour is just this fucked up talus, which has really slowed me down because it's pretty sketchy. It's not that fun to walk over. I don't feel like falling and dying. But brief check-in. We've got 1, 2 different species of Diopterus here, including one that may or may not be the one of the target species. I'll take a moment here, rest for a second, see if I can do that. And then also got a species of a spleen, a nice healthy patch of a spleen platyneuron, the ebony spleenwort. Look at the sore under there. That's nice. That's a nice healthy bunch of it. And we've just been seeing Polypodium virginianum absolutely everywhere. Nice round sorry on that guy. Rock liver, quite the common fern though. So just a handful more. Diopterus fragrans and Diopterus goldiana are 2 other ones we're looking for. Can't tell you if either of these are those off the bat, but maybe. I'll sort it out after and I'll put it there because I'm getting kind of winded. We're gonna cut over to the other side here. Gonna see if we can find 1 or 2 other species of orchid we were looking for, and then we'll probably hike our way back out. So stay tuned. All right, so I came to where I figured it was shallow enough to cut over. And what I've realized is the topographic map doesn't actually show just how far down a lot of these cliffs go. So rather than continue going, we're gonna cut our losses here. Don't get me wrong, saw plenty of nice stuff, but there's a easier way to get in here and to go, down to where we want to go. But we'll save that for another day. We can always come back. There's another entrance, and I think that I think I know basically a way to come in the other side and go check things out over on the other side of this cliff. So rather than exhaust all my water, get myself hurt, get caught out here with dying light, I'm gonna start to hike my way back out, and we'll call it a day. Got a few nice orchid species, got a new fern species. It's a good day in general. So before I get hurt, I'm gonna cut it off here. Whew, I bid you a fawn for a while. I needed more water, a longer day, and a better plan. We had a pretty good plan. It worked until it didn't. You know what they say. But anyway, take it easy. I might chop some of the stuff out of this, depending. I don't know why I always say that. Sometimes it's nice to see how the sausage is made, so to speak. But take it easy. I'm gonna figure out how to get the hell out of here. On our way out here, I will point out one of the more interesting tree features you get. You get these nice red pines. Not Pinus strobus, Pinus rubra, I think. Is that what it is? Yeah, I think so. A 2-needler, a hard pine, as opposed to our 5-needled soft pines. When I say needle, I mean the number. Oops, I didn't mean to pull those out. When I say needles, I mean number of needles. I mean the number of needles per fascicle. So they're in little bundles of 2. Pinus rubra. I think I'm getting that right. So the red pine on the other side of this, if we were able to make it over, there's a pretty extensive red pine forest over there, which is, you guessed it, unusual for New Hampshire, much more common. You get more of them in Vermont. You get a whole bunch of them out in the Midwest. Kind of starts to become more common than white pine as you go north and west from New England. In New England, they're pretty much just relegated to northern Maine, the northern half of New England. And if you do see them planted out, generally speaking, Generally speaking, they're part of some sort of plantation stock, okay? They were planted on purpose, but very closely related to, more closely related to Pinus sylvestris than they are to Pinus strobus. Pinus strobus is a soft white pine, and that's a taxonomic distinction. It's two subgenera. Yeah, now we're talking, remember subfamilies, now we're talking subgenera. Two subgenera in the pine genus, subgenus Pinus and subgenus strobus. Subgenus strobus is the white pine, subgenus Pinus is the hard or yellow pines. West Coast North America, you get a lot more soft white pines. East Coast America, you get a lot more hard yellow pines, except for, of course, Pinus strobus being the odd one out. But it is most closely related to Pinus lambertianum, which is a sugar pine, and Pinus chiapensis, which is like a narrow endemic pine down in Mexico, of all places. And like I said before, this would be most closely related to the European Pinus sylvestris. It's a relatively new arrival on the continent, from what I've heard, from the genetic, as far as the genetic radiation goes. Probably came over maybe only a few tens of thousands, maybe I don't know. Relatively recently did this come over to the North American continent, or at least speciated. Its ancestor came over here, and it speciated into what it is today. All right, red pine, interesting. More interesting on the other side, where you get more of its co-occurring, more of the co-occurring species with it. But we got to figure out a way to get down off this. So take it easy. Pinus resinosa, that's the name of it. Pinus resinosa. 4 native pines in New England. Pinus strobus, Pinus resinosa, Pinus rigida, the pitch pine down there on the Cape. You get a ton of them. And Pinus resinosa, this red pine. Beautiful, beautiful bark on the thing. I didn't say that before. And yes, it is, as the name implies, quite resinous. How about that? Okay, so maybe we won't cut off the video per se. If I can get out of here fast enough, I can cut down to another spot I've been dying to go to, but what was I saying? Oh, yeah, see, this is much more amicable to go through. So up there was the cliffs. I shot myself in the foot. I should have hiked down, because if I was just going through this, I mean, it would have sucked having to climb back up, but not as much as climbing over those talus piles did. So, word to the wise, it's okay to come back to spots more than once. We got our fair share, but just to show you, this is what basically the fucking mosquito. Basically, the base of a nice open deciduous woodland looks like. You can actually walk through it. You know what I mean? It's just ferns. Like I'd say in certain parts of the world. I mean, you got to worry about nettles every once in a while, these guys, but they don't really bother me that much, and they're more around the lakes, the streams and such. But all right, if I hadn't burnt myself out to a crisp up there and just come back down, I would have stormed through this and gone the way that I was going. But live and learn. This is the stuff you pick up, and there's no map for this area. There's only a topographic map. It doesn't actually show you like high relief where there's talus. We have to go off pictures. So now I know. I come back here with a friend. I got a friend who wants to come back here in a couple weeks anyway. Probably shoot another video, and I'll be able to pass that advice along. So basically, we could have hiked up to see cryptogramma, come down, and gone around the other side of this thing. But live and learn, like I said. God, the mosquitoes are getting bad now. And you know what? I'm thirsty. I'm a little sunburned, and I'm tired. So rather than be like, oh yeah, let me go, no, I'm just gonna call it, go back to the car. I should pass on some hiking lessons and some bushwhacking wisdom to you folks when I can. And that's my wisdom for that. If it feels sketchy, it probably is. And if you want to turn back, you should trust your gut. So continuing on to the car, squeezed in the red pines there. That's an important aspect of this this habitat here. I got to do an episode on Pinus banksiana too at some point. Got a lot of material to cover and not too much time to cover it, if you know what I'm saying. Anyway, I won't say farewell, but I'll just put I'll leave the option open. Now check it out. They're already done. I'm surprised they're done this early. But Eupatorium Monotropa. Not to be confused with that other guy, Monotropa uniflora, which only has one flower per stalk. This guy has many flowers. Still a monotrope. Formerly in the genus Monotropa. This used to go by the name Monotropa Eupatorium, but for whatever reason, it was determined that they're not in the same genus, so they put these in their own genus, Eupatorium, and they, in the turn, actually split off a variety of this, variety or subspecies, whatever the fuck it was, Languinosa, excuse me, I'm wiping my nose, into its own species, Hypopodes languinosa. Hairy pine sap is that one. This one just goes by the name pine sap. He's stealing nutrients from fungi in the soil, if you didn't know. Plenty of Monotropa uniflora still blooming around, but I guess the Hypopodes is done a little bit early or whatever. I don't know. I've seen it in like, actually no, it's been done in September. I've seen it in early August though, definitely coming out. Like, maybe this is just a precocious patch. Anyway, that's just an interesting one. It's a mycoheterotroph is what they call that, when a plant is parasitic on fungi in the soil. These guys, I know their cousins work with mostly Rusilla mushrooms that are themselves, symbiotic with oak and pine and beech trees. And indeed, we find ourselves, actually that's not a beech tree at all, but we do find ourselves with plenty of members of the pine family around, okay? And I'm sure they can, they're flexible, and I'm sure that there's some crossover, that Russillas aren't just working with oaks and pines and etc. But you get the idea. All right, we're almost out of the wood. All right, and then there you go. That's Monotropa uniflora. See, even though it makes no chlorophyll, make no mistake, that's a flower. These ones have already been pollinated, so they're turning kind of black. But look, you can see on there, that's a stigma, a style, an ovary, and those withering anthers. So stigma, think of it like a plant cervix. That's what receives the pollen. Style is just what connects the stigma to the ovary, and the ovary is down there in the base. That entire combination of things is called the gynoecium. And then around the rim there, inside the petals, those are the stamens. That's what puts out the pollen. See, these ones are a little bit fresher. So much mystique around this plant. People think it's really rare. It is in some states, but in New England it's quite common. You shouldn't pick it anyway. People make special potions out of it. I really don't know what they're doing, but these things are like, they have granotoxins in them, which I'm sure wouldn't kill you in a minuscule amount, but they make tinctures, which in a way basically concentrate and refine the chemicals that are in there. And I don't know if there's any way to get the granotoxins out of there. I mean, people have gotten in trouble going out to pick these, and they're endangered in some states. They're very common up here in the Northeast. But people have gotten in trouble going out to just absolutely denude the habitat of these. All right, and yes, they don't make chlorophyll. They are achlorophyllous, because just like the Hypopodes monotropa back there, these guys are also parasitizing fungi in the soil. Okay, very persistent plants. Those are the ones from last year. So they just come up, flower, produce no chlorophyll, do nothing else, and then they just put out a bunch of seed and they die. Oh, not die. They senesce. They're still alive under the soil. So they're always there in the soil feeding, and then they put out the flowers when it's time to reproduce. Usually, probably started a couple weeks ago. Or no, not a couple weeks ago, probably started 3 or 4 weeks ago. I keep forgetting it's August. For a minute back there, I thought it was September. And then now I'm thinking it's the beginning of July. I don't know. I'm all over the place. I got to get out of here. We're going to go circumnavigate around this monstrosity, which I do remember having to get around before, and then what lies beyond is hopefully a short walk back to the car. There is one other plant that I believe I passed that I would like to show you, so I'll squeeze that in. And again, we might just make this a good old-fashioned part 1 and part 2 type video. I'm not sure. That's the best thing. I don't have to decide for a month or two, because I probably won't be editing this until, I don't know, December or January. All right, here we go. One last plant. I'm almost done. Almost done. All right, this beautiful, weird-looking monstrosity is Aralia racemosa, the American spikenard, and it's in the family Araliaceae, same order as the carrot family, Apiaceae, but in a different family. That's the ginseng and ivy family, Araliaceae. So same family as Panax, the ginsengs, of which we get, Panax quinquefolius and Panax trifolius here in New England. As well as the ivies, hedera, like English ivy, heterohelix, and of course, its own wonderful brand of bizarrely formatted spikenards. Some people call them salsparillas, but they're all really fascinating. This one's mostly, I think, completely actually done flowering. Oh no, there's a few flowers in there in the back. You can see them. Tiny, tiny flowers. It just aggregates them into these massive clusters. If you ever heard of like a Hercules walking stick or Hercules club or Devil's walking stick, down like if you live in like the Chesapeake South area, the Chesapeake and area south, that's a species of Aralia too. That's Aralia spinosa. Well, Hercules Club and Devil's Walking Stick are two different things. I forget which is which. Doesn't really matter. But you get the idea. One, a Devil's Walking Stick, that's Aralia spinosa. Common names are stupid anyway. See, some of these can grow into like pretty decent sized trees. They're all over East Asia, all over Eastern North America. And they make, what you're looking at there is actually a compound leaf. So the actual base of the leaf is right down in there. And then what looks like a stem is actually a 5-parted, or actually no, more than 5 parts. Damn near, how many leaflets you got in this? How many leaflets you got, bitch? Quite a few. So, just wanted to show you this. I haven't seen this plant in a while, and it's one of my favorites. Likes the rich forest habitat. Interestingly enough, the last place I saw it was the Osprey Mountains, which also have a decent amount of volcanic influence, such as this area does, but I don't think that this is restricted to that. I think it just likes it especially rich. So we'll say goodbye for good this time. I'll probably just divide this in half. Whatever, didn't get all the target species, but got more than we got last time. We only got 1 target species when we were here last time, and we were grateful for it. God damn it! I gotta get some water and some electrolytes in me, probably some food too. I gotta take care of myself. I'm also training for a marathon. This is a rest exercise because I jacked up my foot. Hopefully, it's not a stress fracture. Hopefully, it's just bruised. I just hiked 8 hours on the thing, and it's only now just starting to very like subtly have a dull ache, but we'll see. Maybe I'll make it through my first marathon. You should get out there. This is your sign to get up. Turn on, shut this crap off. Get up, go outside, and go for a run right now, or just go, for a walk where there's some nice native plants near you. All right, that's. I'm a little bit loopy, but it's okay. I'm right at the edge of the, well, I would say trail, but this is just an old road grade. I don't know, maybe an old logging road or fire road or something. Yeah, and I'm parked right at the end of it. So, all right, I bid you adieu. Farewell. Alvida's my friend. I was watching, what is that? Sound of Music with my fiance. And we got to go finish it. Oh, shit, I got to go finish that movie. All right, take it easy.